Hey watch friends, today we're going to be taking a look at something different. This is from SOVRYGN and this is their upcoming model, the Calendar. This will be coming to Kickstarter around April or May of 2022. In case you missed it, did recently do an unboxing of this, so if you want to check that out, I'll have a link in the description, but we go through the packaging materials. It does come with a nice watch roll, do encourage you to check that out. The anticipated price on this is going to be starting at around $515, and I do want to mention this is a prototype that was loaned to the channel for review. However, I do believe they intend to send me a production version when it goes into production, so I do want to mention that up front. As far as the packaging, I already mentioned it does come with box. It comes with a nice watch roll for it. You actually have available a strap or bracelet option, so you have those choices as well. The warranty is going to be 2 years. As far as the specs, this one is a bit deceiving here, and let's go ahead and pop this off. This is a Mirage Luxury pad there, if you're wondering about that one. That being said, as far as the case, from the 3 to 9 position, this is measuring in at 39.1. Which to me, in my eye, I thought this was going to be a lot larger from pictures. So that's a little bit deceiving there. It's actually not altogether that large. The bezel shrinks down slightly further, and that actually drops down to 38.9 millimeters, so just under 39 millimeters. The lugs are going to be a standard size of 20 millimeters. The lug to lug is only coming in at 47.1 millimeters, and that's without the end links. Ordinarily, I wouldn't measure because this does technically have female end links. However, as you can see, this doesn't have really articulation, especially downward articulation to those the way they sit. And accordingly, I counted this almost like a male end link and measured that in at 52.4 millimeters with the end links. The thickness. This is definitely on the chunkier side. They list at 13 millimeters, and that is correct. However, that is without the crystal. As you can see here with that crystal, this thickens it up slightly and it's coming in at 14.9, so definitely on the chunkier side. The crystal itself is a double dome crystal, and that is a sapphire, and it does have an inner AR coating as well. The movement is going to be a pretty unique one. I've looked at a lot of Miyota 9000 series, however this is a Miyota 9100, and that's how you get all those complications. So it is an automatic movement, has all the features that we love about the 9015, reasonably priced. In this case, has a lot of complications instead of just the date, high beat, hacking, hand winding, all those kind of good things. The water resistance is 100 meters or 10 atmospheres. In size to my 6.5 inch wrist, despite the relatively chunky size or appearance of this, it is actually only coming in at 152.1 grams size to my 6.5 inch wrist on bracelet. So that's really not too bad. It's right in the middleweight category. So now that we have the specs out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look more deeply into, first, the colors. This will be available with 6 different configurations. There's the blue and rose gold that we're looking at today, but there's also going to be the same blue dial, but available with a silver case, which will be a little more subdued. There's also a white dial, and that's available with both the silver and rose gold case as well. And then there's a wine dial, so kind of like a burgundy coloration, and that's available with either a black dial, or black coloration for the case, or a rose gold coloration as well. So that one changes it up. As far as the dial itself on this, for this particular version, and I believe all of them, you can see it does have a sand texture as its primary theming. The sand is relatively coarse for overall texture. It does, though, have, for some of the sub-dials, you can see at the 12 o'clock sub-dial for the power reserve, as well as around the 6 o'clock date power reserve, 24-hour power reserve, rather, it does have a satin application as well. So that picks up some iridescence and plays with the light. Speaking of the complications, this does have quite a lot of complications going on, 5 to be exact. It has at the 12 o'clock position, you can see it has a power reserve built into it, which I have this one running fairly low. That being said, on the 3 o'clock position, you can see that it does have a month. For the 9 o'clock position, you do have the day of the week. And then down at the 4:30, you have a date window. And at the 6 o'clock position, it has a 24-hour hand as well. So you have a lot going on. As you move out to the perimeter, this does have a rehaut, and it has a pretty steep slope to it overall. And as you can see, it does have individual minute and second markers all the way around, as well as sub-hashes in between. The hardware itself is going to be what I've described as like a faceted sword for the overall shape. So it does get some nice light play going on there. The texture on that looks like it does have nice polished accents as you go through. Speaking of accents, you also notice on this particular version, and I believe all of them, it does have the accent color for the second hand, as well as the power reserve and down at the 24-hour hand, and then out on the perimeter as well. So nice use of accent colors. The markers are going to be applied markers, and they are polished. As you can see, they are primarily going to be a rectangular shaped faceted rectangle, and they do change in size because of all the complications. There is not one applied at the 12 o'clock position. And as we switch over to the loom, you'll see that carries over to the loom pattern. This does have it applied to both the hour and minute hand, as well as all the markers, but do notice because there is no marker at the 12 o'clock position, it does not have loom applied at the 12 o'clock. Looking at the bezel on this is going to be a fixed configuration. We already looked at that it is set back and it does step down slightly from the case. It has a nice slope going from the case up to the crystal. The primary finish on this, I would say, is going to be polished, though it does have radial brushing as you move around on both the lip as well as the outer perimeter there. Shifting over to the case itself, we've already talked about this is definitely, it's going for a chunkier, angular kind of look overall. So it has an octangular theming throughout, and we'll see that as we get into the bracelet also. But as a result, you have those cuts going through. And, they are up through here. They're kind of curved around. Through here, definitely the edge is broken, so it's not sharp at all. So I have not found this to be in any way sharp, and I really think that's just the overall aesthetic of this. That does carry through to these lugs, and you can see they are going to, again, be chunky, angular, and fit the overall theme there for the lugs. They almost have like a two-piece welded look to them overall, and then this does have a downturn to them where they do angle down, so that way you can see it does line up actually slightly beyond the case back there, which is something that I like. Switching over to the crown side, you can see that there is no integrated crown guard, and above the crown you do have a mono pusher as well. We talked about that in the unboxing. The mono pusher for that will adjust the month as well. All right, as far as the crown itself, this is coming in at 5.2 millimeters. It is a screw down configuration, and as you might have noticed, it is signed as well. I will say it's not the smallest in the world, and it doesn't have crown guards to get in the way, but it is a little bit hard to grip a hold of. As you can see there, kind of tough to grip, but not a big deal. With this one, with all the complications you have going on, it will take a little longer to set if you don't have a winder or something along those lines. So you will have to manipulate this a little more than some others, but I haven't found it to be too bad in usage. As far as the case back on this is a screw down case back. It is, as we already saw, an exhibition case back, and it does have a custom rotor. Additionally, the finish that's applied is going to be a nice radial brushing all the way around. So overall, I think it's a pretty good looking case back and a nice execution. Shifting over to the bracelet starts at the 20 millimeters as you'd expect. It does taper down at the clasp to 16 millimeters. As we already talked about, it technically has female end links, though do note the lack of articulation makes them in many respects appear like a female, but wear a little more like a male end link would. The texture or the finishing is going to be a mix of, I would say, about equal application of brushing as well as polishing for this. Each of those center couplers is going to be polished, whereas each of the links is going to be octagonal cut. An H-link, I would say a modified H-link overall appearance for that, but brushed finish. As you go through, the bracelet itself, do note, does not really have a whole lot in the way of articulation. That's not to say that it wears poorly, it's just designed to where it holds its shape, so it locks in with those octagonal couplers there. It is not designed to have a full articulation. I found in that respect, it wears almost like a fixed jewelry bracelet would, as opposed to a typical drape. Which isn't to say that it wears badly, because it doesn't at all. It wears comfortably, it just wears differently than I'm accustomed to with most watches. The links are going to be held in with screws, so nice and easy to change there. And then in case you missed it, there are quick release spring bars on the back as well. So if you decide the bracelet isn't for you, you can easily enough change that out. The clasp on this is going to be a butterfly construction, and you can see at the 6 o'clock, you have to put that one down first, and then as you press for the 12 o'clock, that's where you have the sign application as well. All right, so now that we have a better feel for the watch, let's go ahead and look at some what I would call comps, mainly just to look at for sizing reference. They're really not actually comps in any respect. Here it is next to a Zelos Mako. I picked a bronze here just to give the rose gold coloration next to the bronze. And this gives you an idea sizing of this one 40 millimeters. You can see overall presence with this one having a dive style bezel, this one being fixed. They have a relatively similar presence overall, though of course this one is going to be on the chunkier side, though not overly so. And then another one that just has kind of a lot going on for it. This is a Revolot R9. We looked at this in the past as well. Just wanted to give you an idea for that as far as the overall for sizing. This one, I can't recall offhand. I believe it was around 44 millimeters total as far as the listed specs that we measured in for this. But this just gives you an idea as far as how that translates overall, both in the sizing, dial presence, and those kind of things. All right, so now that we have a better feel for the watch, let's go ahead and wrap things up with my personal view of some of the positives, some critiques, as well as the overall summary. First, for positive. I'm going to say this blue. I think on this particular variation, it's a very vibrant, very attractive blue, and I think it's nicely applied. I like the way it has the accent colors for the subdials with the dark blue, and the orange I think goes pretty well with it also. So I think this is nice and attractive. This certainly has loads of complications. More so than any watch I personally had. This has 5 complications in total, so if you like complications, this is definitely one that's going to appeal to you. The design itself, I think, is very much what you'd expect for the microbrand space, and that is originality. This isn't going to be your typical knockoff or homage watch that you see out there, so it's nice to see some creativity in the works there, and I appreciate that. Additionally, this is going to be an uncommon movement. I love the Miyota 9000 series. I don't have long-term experience with this 9000 series, only had this one for a couple weeks here. That being said, I do suspect that this will be a nice, reliable movement that gets you a lot of complications, so it's cool to see that available as well, especially at such a low price point. Speaking of the price, I neglected to mention, this is going to be coming in at $515, which that, it does put it into a fairly competitive market and territory for that. So you can put that either in the positive or the critique, depending on how you want to characterize that. Overall, if you like an original design, if you like a movement that's uncommon, but a good movement, I do suspect, I think you could potentially get a good bit for your money. It all just comes down to perspective. As far as some of the critiques, the dial, I do suspect many are going to find this to be busy. There's no way around it when you have this many complications on a dial. You have a lot going on, so that's something to be aware of. Obviously, you can tell that from pictures, whether you think that's the case or not. The thickness, again, this is really subjective. This comes down to preference. If you like a slim watch, this is not going to be the one for you. If you like something a little more angular, a little more chunky, and you don't mind a little bit of thickness on a watch that is still small wrist friendly, then this is one that it could be either your cup of tea or a little bit too thick. The rose gold finish, again, subjective here. For me personally, I do find this to be a little bit flashy, especially with the polished accents, so I would opt for the silver version of this personally, or possibly the black version as well. But rose gold, if that's your taste, and I do like bronze, but I like bronze when it's more subdued and patinaed, so again, subjective. And then butterfly clasp, I'm just generally not a huge fan of butterfly clasps. Because you don't have any micro adjustment or anything like that, I do think it's a nice cohesive look to it. I think it keeps for those slim lines, and I do like that aspect about butterflies, but I don't like the inability to be able to get precision fitment. All right, so overall, that kind of wraps things up here. Where does that leave us? For me personally, I think that this is a watch that it's going to speak most to those who really like complications. So if you're looking for a watch that has a lot of different options for you, there are not many out there, especially in the microbrand space in this kind of price point, that have your month, your date, 24-hour, power reserve, a date window, all of those kind of things going on. So this is one that I do think is going to have appeal in that respect. Additionally, if you like the style, you're looking for something different, you like the incorporation of the octagonal looks throughout in the overall chunkiness, then this is one for you. So again, I do have a link down in the description for their Kickstarter campaign. It's going to be coming around April or May of 2022. Do stay tuned for that if you're interested in picking one up. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, please do smash that like button. Additionally, if you haven't done so already, please do hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.